So this weekend we're going to start looking at Monster's stalling issue, my BMW F650, because I thought it was resolved, and then I took it to Wales a few weeks back, and on the way back it left me stranded in the middle reservation. It started up fine after turning the ignition off and back on again, but losing power at like 70-80 miles an hour while you're overtaking lorries is not fun. So I've decided we need to do a bit more work on it. Yesterday we just checked the battery with voltmeter. We checked the level with the ignition off, the ignition on, with the bike running, and then the start-up test, so how much it dropped by when we pushed the starter button before it fired up. So we've written those down, they're a bit low, so overnight we had the battery charging. So we'll do some more checks in a bit, and then my friend's over who's got a diagnostic tool, and then we're hoping we can plug it into my computer and then see if it brings up any fault codes that might help us kind of identify what the problem is.
Which is that way, isn't it? You
so
agreed?
The red bit is facing down, yeah? Yeah.
Right. And that goes on, and then you twist that to there.
Oh, okay. It's easy as that.
We're connected.
Please switch on the ignition. Okay. So I'll hit OK. Excuse me. Injector valve malfunction, open circuit or output stage overloaded, and the fault occurred 120 times. We have oxygen sensor circuit malfunction, no signal or signal intermittent, and that fault is currently present and it has occurred 200 times. We've got battery voltage too low, it's not present now, occurred 9 times, and the intake air temperature sensor, short circuit to positive or open circuit. The fault is currently present and occurred 200 times. So we're going to start by looking at the air sensor. I'm going to try and remove this connection here to see if there's any damage. Okay, so we've done a continuity test on this part of the air sensor that we've removed. So we've set it to 200,000 because it said to test it on anything over 50,000, didn't it?
Yeah, ohms.
Ohms. So then we put the cables together.
Well, look at the reading when they're apart. So
it's 1 at the moment when they're apart. Together, it reads 0. So the one would show a broken circuit, and when they're together it shows a continuous circuit. Hence, if we use a bulb and we put the 2 probes on the bottom, well, not on the bottom, one on the side and one on the bottom, then it will read 0 because we have a continuous circuit, which in theory should be what we see on this. But if we do the same test on the air sensor, it's a bit tricky, isn't it?
That's it.
But we're still reading 1, which would make us think that the circuit's broken, so something is broken in this element. The exhaust sensor. So we just plugged the exhaust sensor back in after giving it a bit of a clean. We're expecting it to not resolve the issue, but we're going to plug the diagnostic tool back in, reread it, clear the faults, which we expect will still be showing, and then start the bike up and see what happens. Just taken Monster for a ride, and now we have 2 fault codes: intake air temperature sensor and the injector valve malfunction. So now we're going to reset all adaptation values. The procedure will clear any fault codes if present. Do you still want to continue? Okay, let's do it. So after doing the resets, we've just started Monster up again and let her get up to temperature. So the fans come on, it's stopped, and now we're going to do another diagnostic check. So now the oxygen sensor fault is back. I've just started keeping a spreadsheet to log all the error codes that we've been getting from the diagnostic tests. So just to mention, when we cleared the faults, we reran the test after turning ignition off and back on again, and none of the faults appeared. We also ran the bike for a few minutes, and again none of the faults appeared. It was only once I'd taken the bike out for a 20-minute spin that they showed up on the diagnostic test. So it's worth noting that you might need to get the bike up to operating temperature. Also, we've got here The current, well, they're not present now on the bike, but the ones that are still showing are the air sensor, the injector valve malfunction, and the oxygen sensor. We're not really going to worry too much about the sensors for now, because they could have been broken for a really long time, because when we ran the test originally, it happened over 200 times. So these could have been there for literally years. We're going to focus more on the battery voltage issue, which has only occurred 9 times. And my bike has probably only stalled completely around 9 times at high speed. So we're thinking it could be linked to this one, which hasn't reappeared. And I'm not expecting it to anytime soon as well, because it has been so intermittent. You know, I can do hundreds of miles and then all of a sudden there I am on the motorway overtaking a lorry and it completely cuts out. So yeah, it's quite handy to do this. I'm going to keep this updated, and I'll keep putting this in my videos so we can kind of try and work out as a little BMW community if there's a way we can get around this and kind of learn from it. Firstly, I'm going to take my bike out in a little while, and I'm going to put the heated grips on, just because the last time she stalled, the weather was pretty bad, and I'm pretty certain I had the heated grips on. It's probably not related at all, but I thought it's worth giving it a go, and then I'll come back and I'll rerun the diagnostic test just to see if anything else comes up. So I'm back from the ride where I had my heated grips on, no stalling. When you want the bike to stall, it doesn't. I tested it through all the different temperatures. I even let it go into the battery saving mode, switched the bike back on again. Again, no stalling issues. And then when I got home, I just put down the side stand in first gear with the clutch pulled in, just out of interest to see if that brought up any fault codes at all for the side stand. But I'm guessing it probably won't, just because the clutch was pulled in, but I thought I'd give it a go anyway. So let's see what happens. I've plugged it all in. So diagnostic tool. So let's read it and see what error messages come up. So I've had exactly the same error messages again with the injector valve, the oxygen sensor and the air sensor. So that's kind of telling us that the heated grips have nothing to do with the stalling issue, which is good, so I can rule that one out. So now I'm going to undo the battery terminals and unplug the ECU. So as I've removed the ECU plug, I've noticed that the little seal that goes on the edge seems to be a little bit kind of damaged here. So it's making me wonder whether I actually had it seated properly the last time I put it in. So I'm going to clean everything up with contact cleaner, just really carefully. Also clean the plug up, which is pretty filthy, and then rerun the test. Right, so that's the ECU plug back in. Use contact cleaner, a little bit of F650 and a little bit of blue grease. So hopefully that's nice and clean now. So I've just connected the battery back up, and I'm going to leave it maybe 10 minutes or so until I run the diagnostic test. So just with the ignition on, it's picked up all the same faults again and hasn't cleared any of them. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to clear all the faults and the adaptions, and then rerun the test with no faults already logged on it. So interestingly, I had the ECU and battery unplugged for between 25 to 30 minutes before, and when I reran the diagnostic tool, it still was showing the faults prior to disconnecting them. So then I cleared the faults, cleared the adaptations, had the bike running and up to operating temperature. So when the fan came on and then stopped, then I shut the engine off. Then I've just put the ignition on and ran the diagnostic test again, and it's saying no fault codes found. Okay, so I'm going to go for a final bike ride, because the fact I didn't read any fault codes, I don't really want to leave it like that, because that's exactly what happened yesterday. After removing all the adaptations and fault codes, it read nothing, even after getting the bike up to working temperature. So I'm going to take it for a spin for like 20 minutes, come back, do one more diagnostic test today, which I'm hoping will bring up the same error messages that I had before, and then leave it there while I think about what to do next. Okay, so only 2 of the faults have come back now, the oxygen and the air intake temperature sensor. So the injector valve malfunction hasn't showed up yet. I don't know if maybe it would if I took the bike for a longer ride, because I've only just taken her out for, I don't know, like 10 minutes or something. But yeah, I'll leave it there for today, and then over the next few days I'll post another video with any more progress that I make.